and welcome to another show of the Prime Premier League podcast with myself and Mr. Dr. Ketspire, Mr. Crystal Palace himself. How you been, mate?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, mate. But the Crystal Palace bit's becoming a little bit of a struggle, mate. But all good, mate. What about yourself? How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, mate. I'm good. I'm buzzing after the weekend, as you can imagine. So yeah, let's get into it, Doc. Let's start off at the Etihad. Man City didn't have it all their own way, did they? I know Kovacic come in for Rodri, got 2 goals. Would you say that's worked for Man City, or do you think they look a bit vulnerable defensively?
I think Man City have looked a bit vulnerable defensively over the last 2 years, if I'm totally honest. I thought even last year they looked a bit vulnerable at the back. So I don't think nothing's changed. I think Rodri obviously is a massive, massive influence on the protection that they've got there, which is common sense. I think he's arguably the best holding midfielder in the world. And you take out the best holding midfielder in the world, you're gonna see a slight issue. But when you bring in his replacement and he goes on and scores 2 goals in a 3-2 win, to say that you've missed Rodri, have you? You know. So at the end of the day, like I said, I think the Rodri talk will only happen at the end of the season. But the one thing I would say is, if anyone's capable of dealing with it, Man City's capable of dealing with it. And for me personally, I still think City are the favourites to win the league, with or without Rodri.
Yeah, I think so as well, mate. I totally agree. I think they've looked vulnerable. I don't know if they looked vulnerable last year. They probably did because obviously they give Arsenal such a big lead. But this year, I think with Fulham going there scoring 2, I think teams will take it to Man City now. Yeah, and it's not sort of that scaremonger. Mace says, "Hi guys, welcome in, Mace, and our one and only Mr. Luton Town is here as well. Maurice, hello, mate. How are you?" Yeah, Man City. You suspect they go out in January and spend some money, wouldn't you, on another holding midfield player because they don't really have that like for like replacement for Rodri, so to speak. Doc, I've heard a few people say that Haaland would be more of a miss than a Rodri, and he's sort of irreplaceable. What's your sort of perspective and concept on that? That if Haaland was to get injured, Man City are definitely knackered.
I understand the sentiment behind it because ultimately they've only got the one striker. So, without Haaland, they've got no like for like replacement. But the same principles apply for me. I think that they've got more than adequate like reinforcements there where they could just juggle the pack, not play with an out and out striker, still create plenty of chances from the midfield. And I generally believe that the Fodens, the Bruyners will step up and score the goals along with the others. So I understand the concept with it, but I just think it's all silly talk, me. Like, if you want to talk about Haaland being out and if you want to talk about Rodri being out, why aren't we talking about Odegaard being out at Arsenal?
Yeah,
And the impact that that might have, Why
yeah,
don't we talk about if Liverpool lose like Salah, or if Liverpool lose Diaz at the moment, which is probably the key player to their role? Like, if you're talking about teams losing injuries, which no one wants to see as an average footballer, um, I just think it's just talk for the sake of talking, Until they're out, then it's kind of irrelevant, isn't it? You know what I mean?
yeah. Just before we move on, Mace has put in the chat, and thank you, Mace, for your question. Did you both see the he put Jack Ward-Prowse, but it's James Ward-Prowse red card? Bit of a feisty one at Stamford Bridge this weekend, weren't it? Never to say the less. What did you make of Ward-Prowse's red card, mate? Well, it was a second yellow, weren't it? But yeah,
You know,
it's a yellow card, and you can't. I thought he was playing rugby at one point, but yeah,
it's the thing, in it. When you're on a yellow card and you make these decisions, yeah. If you get the second yellow card, you've got to wear it, innit? You got to
yeah,
you got to own it. That's the whole
yeah,
concept of not getting the first yellow. And when you do get that first yellow, don't make the cardinal sin of giving the referee an opportunity to give you the second one. You've got to be on your best behaviour. And he
yeah.
ultimately wasn't that, was he?
No, he wasn't. Hayden, welcome into the live. Thank you, brother, for the support. Got a question here from Wes, which is quite an interesting one. Do you think we may have seen Rodri in a Man City kit for the last time?
Yes. is the short answer to the question. I think that is highly likely. I think if Pep walks at the end of the season and Real Madrid come in for Rodri, you could potentially see that. But again, I just think it's all speculation, isn't it? There's no offers that have been tabled. I mean, it is a very good question, but who knows? Who knows the answer to that?
Do you think clubs will take a punt on Rodri, knowing he's had this ACL injury, or do you think teams might let him see another year at City and see sort of how he comes back? Because they say, don't you, once you've had an ACL injury, you're never the same player. And obviously, someone has played the game. You'll know it better than most of others.
The logical answer to your question is to see how he comes back before you take the punt. But in reality, it's the case of striking while the iron's hot. The opportunity will be there. And if you don't get him there, you might miss out on him long term to another club. So it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, isn't it? It's like, do you show your cards or do you keep your deck close to your chest, sort of thing? So I think with Rodri, if he becomes available, you've got to take him when the opportunity is there. Otherwise, you could be kicking yourself for long term. So
yeah. Don't want to go too much into it, obviously, with Thursday night's London show in mind. But let's go down to Selhurst Park, mate. Another defeat for your mighty Crystal Palace this weekend. 1-0 to Liverpool, so it's probably not a bad defeat. Or should I say it was an expected defeat in hindsight? What did you make of your performance, mate? What did you make of the game in general? I thought you was quite unlucky, I thought, not to get something out of the game, but it seemed like a flat Crystal Palace again, didn't it?
I think the first half, the word flat sums it up perfectly. I think the first half was not a good show, wasn't a true reflection of what we're about as a club. Nothing about that first half is anything that we could be positive about, apart from the fact that after conceding a goal so early on in the game against a team that had so much possession, the fact that they only had 2 shots on target in the first half goes to show the complex of the game. Because with the amount of dominance that they had with the ball, the amount of corners that they had, the fact that they couldn't convert any of that into more than 2 shots on target, whatever way you look at it, you've got to give Palace a little bit of props for that, as far as I'm concerned. So, first half, wasn't much I could say about the game in a positive light, apart from the fact that we kept in there and we were still in it to win it, so to speak. Second half, completely different. Crystal Palace have come out in that second half. I think the second half performance was very impressive. I think a team that's 1-0 down against Liverpool still managed to manoeuvre through the game, take a few more risks, create more shots on target than Liverpool over the course of 90 minutes. I think if you go on the concept of they were so dominant in the first half, then I think you've got to accept the fact that we would have dominated the second half. Otherwise, the stats don't add up. So, it wasn't an ideal result. It is a little bit concerning that we haven't got that win on the board, but there's still a lot of positives that you can take from the game. And I think that there is still positives that we can ultimately take from it. Losing 1-0 to top of the league isn't exactly the worst result in the world, is it?
No.
It's still hard to take. You still get annoyed. You still get frustrated. But in the scheme of things, most people were saying Liverpool were going to win 4-1, 5-1. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They won 1-0. They had 4 shots on target across the whole game.
And bearing in mind, obviously, you said that if results don't improve, we've got a question here. Honestly, do you think if Palace lose a couple more games, obviously you travel to Forest and you've got Spurs in your next 2, do you think that the manager could come into a little bit of trouble? I wouldn't say trouble, but let's say a bit of pressure. I think that's a better word to use than trouble.
So there's 2 ways I can take this question. Question 1 is, do I think he will come under bother? And question 2 is, do you think he should come under bother?
Well, give us both.
I think football is a results business at the end of the day. So if you're not getting results, people are going to always ask questions of you. So yes, the question should be asked from a neutral fan. And yes, a neutral fan should have this concept of, hang on a minute, this isn't working. But from a Crystal Palace perspective, after seeing what he's capable of doing last year, knowing the direction of the club, the new signings that he's making, I think it would be absolutely ludicrous to replace him. But again, that's just my opinion. You know, I did say last year under Roy Hodgson that at the end of the Hodgson era, Crystal Palace are taking a risk that has not worked out the last time we've tried this. Bringing in a young manager to play a style of play that isn't really renowned for the Crystal Palace way of doing things. You know, we're not a team that have built our reputation on giving it a go and playing fluent football. And when you do that, you are playing with fire. So if you're going to do that, you got to live by the sword, die by the sword. So you've got to back your manager and give him a chance to do that. Otherwise, there's no point in replacing a Roy Hodgson. You might as well have kept him there and carried on doing things the safe way. So I think you just got to be a little bit realistic, you know. It's the same principle with like Spurs and what they're doing with Ange. You know, they're trying to do something that they've never done before. So you got to bear with them. You got to take the bumps in the road. You got to take the rough with the smooth. But the one thing I can take out of the game is every game we've lost this season, we've been competitive. We haven't been outplayed and we haven't been smashed by anyone.
That word competitive again, eh?
So like I said, I'd be a little bit more concerned if we weren't having shots on target, if we wasn't creating chances. I generally believe that it will all click into place. And when it does, we'll be absolutely fine. So
Yeah, I think you'll be all right anyway, mate. To be honest with you, even if it don't click into place, I think there's worse teams in the league. I've just seen Ipswich play. Do you know what I mean? So they're not the best. Let's just move on to Arsenal quickly because they didn't have it all their own way. A lot of us predicted high scoreline in the Arsenal game, and obviously I want to keep the London sides a bit brief. Obviously with Thursday show in mind, and obviously we'll have an Arsenal fan on there to talk about it in a bit more depth. But do you think Kai Havertz has paid back the money that Arsenal spent on him? Obviously, he's just equalled Robin van Persie's record. I think it's 7 goals in 7 home games consecutively. Do you think he's paid that money back, Doc?
I just think the proof is in the pudding. All the while he's your top scorer scoring goals and outscoring a Solanke that's 65 million. He's looking like a bargain, isn't he? So in hindsight, it was an absolute bargain. It was a great bit of business. I get it. But I never questioned whether Havertz was a good footballer. I never questioned the amount of money that you spent on him. I questioned bringing him in at a time when you brought him in, when you clearly needed other avenues there, and you used such a large amount of your budget on Havertz at a time where I didn't believe that you needed Havertz. That's my concept on it.
Yeah. What did you make of the Arsenal game Saturday? I know that they had their first shot on target was in the second half. I know they won the game 3-1, but ultimately they went behind to Southampton as well. And Southampton weren't that bad. What did you make of the game for Arsenal to sort of come back into it? Maybe in earlier years they may have rolled over and died and lost that game. Does it show you the character they've got within that squad?
I don't see it like that. If I'm totally honest, I don't think Arsenal would have rolled over and lost that game any other year either. I think Arsenal would have done what Arsenal would have done. Maybe in latter years they would have probably edged it and scored the 1 goal and won 1-0. Do you know what I mean? Um, so I don't read too much into it. I just think that you've got to give people that criticising Arteta. I can see a comment in there about disrespecting Southampton. I don't think it's just a case of disrespecting Southampton. I don't see it like that. I see it that you've got a squad of players, and if you are playing for Arsenal Football Club, you've got to have the trust and the belief in every single player that plays for your club can compete in a game. Now, if the flip side is they can't compete against Southampton, then they've got no business wearing the Arsenal shirt, have they? Because if you can't play against Southampton, that I think everyone can accept is the worst team in the league at the moment, then you've got no business playing for Arsenal Football Club. So, you know, I think that it was a risk. Yeah, it was a slight risk, but the risk paid off. You won 3-1. You've done exactly what you needed to do. And ultimately, some of your players got a bit of rest. It's the perfect scenario, no?
Yeah, just on a bit of rest there. Wes has said, I think Arteta showed a bit of disrespect towards Southampton when they're starting 11. Obviously, he dropped, 3-4 players, and Martinelli, not Martinelli, what's his name? Thomas Partey played right back, which we know is out of position for him. Would you say it was a disrespect from Arteta, or would you say that he knew his opponents and knew that it was time to rotate the squad that he's got?
Well, I mean, like I just touched on, I think if you can't do it against Southampton, you can't do it against anyone. So you've got two answers, ain't you? You either play your strongest team every single week, and then if you play your strongest team every week and three of them get injured against Southampton, you're going to criticise the manager for not resting the players. When you win the game 3-1 and you win it quite convincingly, you've got to accept it for what it is. It wasn't an ideal first half. Some of these players hadn't played with each other in the starting 11. There was a drop off. You manoeuvred it, you got through the game, you won the game convincingly at the end. So when all's said and done, you give the manager a pat on the back. You only criticise him if it goes wrong. And it didn't go wrong. So
I think Arsenal will be all right, mate, to be honest. Doc, I know you've given Aston Villa a lot of props this week, especially on TikTok with their win over Bayern Munich, and I'm not going to take their props away, but Sunday's game against Man United was dreadful, wasn't it?
yes, it was. I think that's, a lot of Villa fans was telling me before the game that they actually thought Man United would beat them because they're their bogey team. So if you take into concept that that's their bogey team and they've kept a clean sheet and they've got a point, that could be a very, very valuable point come the end of the season. If ultimately they lose the top four by 2 points, that game could be the one that comes back to bite them on the bump. So there is a bit of hindsight there, but we're talking about an Aston Villa drawing with a Man United, and that's a bad result. Well, that is the perfect testament of how far the club's come. Because I think if you rewind it 2 years ago when Emery took over from Gerrard, they were 17th in the league on goal difference, arguably in the relegation zone. If you offered them a point against Man United back then, I think they would have snapped your arm off. So I think that's the biggest compliment you can give a club without giving them a compliment, that you're slagging them off for getting a 0-0 against Man United. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, Hayden says, if Ten Hag stays, do you think United will be down near the bottom of the table near the end of the season? What's your thoughts on that one, Doc?
Nah, I don't. I think that potentially they could miss out on Europe, but I don't see it getting that bad. I think Man United have got more than enough there to beat the other teams around them. I think they showed it against Southampton when they pretty much dominated the game. I'd see them doing the same against Leicester. I'd see them doing the same against Ipswich. I'd see them doing the same against many other teams down there. So I don't think it's that bad. I think that, yes, they could potentially get beaten to seventh and maybe finish eighth without European football, without winning the trophy this year. I think that's a realistic thing that might happen. I think they could potentially finish ninth in the league, but I don't think they're going to be down the bottom, mate. What do you think?
I agree with you, mate. I'll be very, very surprised to see a Man United squad be down the bottom, even finishing the bottom half. I think they've still got a lot of quality in the side, in the likes of Bruno, Rashford, Garnacho. I'm still yet to see anything from that Højlund, to be fair. And defensively, although they look a shambles at the minute, arguably they brought Maguire and Evans in on Sunday and they've kept a clean sheet. And I think it speaks volumes that
They've actually kept 4 clean sheets this year, by the way, just to add into concept. They've actually kept 4 clean sheets already.
So
this
they'll be
poor
all right.
Man United team have managed to shut 4 other teams out.
Yeah, I think they'll be all right, mate. I just think they're in a bit of a blip, aren't they? The club seems toxic from top to bottom, and I'm sure we'll find out more tomorrow. As we all know, Man United, the Ineos group, Radcliffe have a meeting with themselves tomorrow to discuss the future of Eric Ten Hag. And as we come on to that, Doc, I did say earlier that I'd seen a video and I'd sent it into the group chat about Ineos wanting to go in a new direction with Man United and go for a younger manager and sort of have that project. Now, Michael Carrick was the name that was linked to Man United and is still being linked with Man United tonight. And the odds have slashed on Michael Carrick potentially getting the United job over Ruud and over Inzaghi and etc. What do you make of this, Doc, with Carrick possibly being linked with the move back to Man United and United already being in touch with Middlesbrough? And this is all speculation. There's nothing concrete on this. What did you make if Man United do move for a Michael Carrick and sort of go down the project route of an Arsenal and even a Chelsea?
So my opinion on this is just my opinion. So being asked a question, I'm going to answer it with my opinion. You might not like my opinion, you might not agree with my opinion, but it's still my opinion. I think Manchester United have got two projects in mind. I think they've got a project moving the club forward so that they can build their new ground, pay the money that they've got in the youth development, and get the club ready with a bit of stability for the bigger picture. So I think whoever comes in now is only coming in with the eye on the first project. I think once all said and done, once they've got their new ground, once they've then improved the squad, got rid of the dead wood, brought in some more players, I think that's where Project 2 kicks in. And I don't see one manager coming in and overseeing this whole development of Manchester United Football Club. That would be an Alex Ferguson, a Arsene Wenger. I think them days are long gone. So I don't see it like that. So if a Carrick comes in now, I think Carrick comes in now to steady the ship and to see things until everything else is in place where a world class manager can come in and take over. Um, I don't think it's fair to bring in someone to oversee things now that could ultimately cost them a legacy or their chance of the move at the right time for a Carrick to come in right now. I think Carrick is gearing up for maybe being the next manager nearer the time where it suits him a little bit more. So I don't think Carrick should take the job. I don't think it's a good move for Carrick. I think if you want to steady the ship right now, you need someone that's going to run that ship with an iron fist. Someone like a Tuchel, someone that's been there, done that, got the t-shirt, someone that can work with the occasion, the size of the club, and everything else, and let him put the structure in place for the next guy to develop after him because a Tuchel's not going to be at Man United for an 8 to 10 year window.
No.
I don't think no one is. So I also think Southgate would be a good fit for right now. And I know that Man United fans are literally spitting their tea out right now, screaming at the screen. This guy just said Southgate. But it's a stable choice. It's a logical choice for the situation that you find yourself in right now, where you need a little bit of stability at your club. You need someone that can come in, sort your defence out, not not have to worry about anything else. Bring a direction into the club. Have something that the fans understand and can get behind. All the things that Ten Hag isn't doing right now. So I think Southgate would be a good choice right now. And again, in 3 years' time, move Southgate out and bring someone in when the club is ready. But Man United have got massive problems, and it don't matter who comes in right now. No one in world football is going to be able to go into that club and fix the problems in a 2-3 year project. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think I said this on TikTok, mate. To be honest with you, I think the Southgate situation, and again, as you've rightly touched on, there is no Man United fan wants to see it. But defensively, although they've kept these clean sheets, they don't look that great. And he will definitely shore up that defence. Now, the question is can they take it on to another level? And maybe in 2 to 3 years' time they can. But he'll definitely get the best out of the English players in that squad. We've got D in the comments said, "What's good, Doc and Big P?" I think that is our Demas. And he said United will go with someone who knows the club to steady the ship like a Carrick. And we've also got a comment from Wes. It says it's United's worst start in Premier League history. Which, yeah, it's a fact. It is their worst start in Premier League history, and I still don't think they'll get relegated. We've got Tapped. Welcome to the live, Tapped. He says, "I'd take Tuchel for 3 years. I don't want Southgate. The thing is, Southgate, I reckon, will hardly concede, but he's going to take away from our counter-attacking threat." What do you make on that comment, Doc?
I don't understand where you're coming from, fella. I don't understand what you've been watching over the last 9 years. Southgate's been doing the counteracting football for the last 9 years, mate. If that's what you've got in your arsenal, that's right up Southgate Street. Southgate has just made a name on the world stage and on the Euro stage of doing exactly what you think that he ain't going to do at your club. I think that's absolutely delusional. I think that's right what Southgate brings to your team. So I don't agree with that comment whatsoever. I don't even understand what angle you're coming from. It makes no sense to me.
Wes says that Eric Ten Hag had 4 of his own signings starting on the bench at the weekend. It says a lot. So, yeah, it does. Question here from Maurice. Question for the panel. How do you get out of a rut or a run of football losses? And how do you find form through losses and trying to motivate players? Doc, I'm going to let you answer that one, mate, because you've got a wealth of knowledge in management.
I don't know about that. I don't think that you can get out of a rot through management apart from good man management and try to keep it as positive as possible and just hope that that first win comes. But ultimately, the only way you get out of a rot is winning that first game. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer than other. But until you get that first win, it's just something that's just hard to do. So I don't think there's any formula to get it. I think, unfortunately, you have to get that first win, however way you need to. That first win is the be all and end all. It doesn't matter if you perform badly if you get that win, because what that win does for you then is it lifts the place. It gives everyone a buzz. Everyone that was unhappy now becomes a little bit happier. So ultimately, the answer to your question is win a game. If I knew the answer to your question and I could answer it with a formula, I'd probably be sitting somewhere else right now, earning quite a lot more money. But but I think ultimately you've got to win. Like that's the be all and end all.
Yeah. Doc, we're going to move on now to Leicester Bournemouth. Leicester get their first win of the season. Hayden says Leicester's first win of the season against Bournemouth. Do you think it's a turning point for us with playing Southampton away and Forest at home? That's their next two fixtures. Do you think it's a turning point for Leicester and their season?
I think it all depends on what your ambitions is and what you class as a turning point. I don't think it's any more of a turning point than getting a result against like Spurs for Leicester. I think that's a massive point, getting a point against Spurs. You've beat Bournemouth, and I think Bournemouth have been on a good run, so I think it's a very good result. But a turning point, I think Leicester will always beat certain teams. I generally do, but I just don't think Leicester will beat enough teams in the league that will keep them there. I don't think you'll put up enough points collectively to keep you in the league. That's just my opinion, and I could be wrong because I think Leicester have got more points on the board now than I probably thought that they would. But that's my beliefs, and I'll stick to it. I don't think Leicester have got a squad there that's capable of keeping you in the Premier League. I also don't think you've got a manager that's capable of keeping you in the Premier League. I think that manager has made a name by signing loads and loads of players and ultimately doing a job with the amount of players that he's got. But if you look at the players that he's had in the past to work with compared to the players that he's got working with right now, I think it's difference between night and day personally. So that's my opinion. So, I think that, yeah, you've won a game, and I think potentially the next two games you said are also winnable. But I think when all's said and done, I still think that you'll be down there, mate. That's just my opinion.
Leicester's a funny one because I've been talking to a few Leicester fans, and by all accounts, Steve Cooper's already coming under a lot of pressure there. And I generally think that next Saturday, when you play, not next Saturday, the Saturday after, sorry, it's international week, isn't it? But when you go to Southampton, which is your next game, that's sort of like El Sakiko. And I think whoever loses that could be banging trouble there. And again, I think you have to realise what the ambition is for Leicester City Football Club. And for me, it's just about staying in the league. And I just can't see you doing that under Steve Cooper. I think he's one of the worst managers in the league. And he gets props for doing nothing. He done nothing at Forest, let's be honest. He got him out of the Championship, but he should have done with the money that he was spent. And then to disregard the team that come up to buy 23 brand new players, and it's ridiculous. And I just generally think he's awful.
I just want to address these next two comments. I don't want to go back on the podcast, but I do want to just address these two comments because I understand what your point is, but I think you're slightly missing what my point is. Manchester United Football Club have got certain aspects of their football club. They've got two wingers that want to play on the counter attack. It doesn't matter who's in charge at Manchester United. Yeah, you don't need to be a rocket science to see the positive that Man United have got. So it doesn't matter the fact that he managed England and he had better players of doing it. The whole concept is that is what he will try to replicate at Man United. So to say that he will take away the counter attack, I don't see the concept in that because that's all Man United have got. The only thing Man United can offer you is counter attacking football. So whoever comes in is going to have to adhere to counteracting football. And Gareth Southgate is very good at counteracting football. So that's the point of what I'm making. It doesn't matter who you get in charge. If Pep Guardiola went there tomorrow, Pep would still work with the pluses that they've got. And the pluses that they've got is the emergence of Garnacho and Ahmed and the pace and the youth. They've also got a Rashford that's showing a few little bits of signs this year that he wants to play a bit. And they've got nothing up front that offers anything else than counteracting football to try to support the strikers because they haven't got a striker that's good enough doing it on his own. So that's my point.
Yeah. Doc, Wes says, speaking of Leicester, does Jamie Vardy go down as a Premier League legend from non-league to a record-breaking Premier League winner? What's your thoughts on Jamie Vardy, mate? He's had a very good career, hasn't he? From where he was to where he is now.
I think the proof's in the pudding. He's a record breaker. So anyone that breaks a record goes down in history. He's got a record. So you can say what you want about the man, but you can't take away the achievement that he's got. So he's got something that no other footballer that's ever played the game in the Premier League has got. So for me, that's legendary status. Ultimately, if someone beats that record, then you've got a slight dilemma, haven't you? But until it's beaten, which I don't think it will ever be beaten personally, it is what it is. You can't take away from his achievement.
I thought today was quite. I read an article today about Jamie Vardy, right, and it was quite funny. And it said it was Jamie Vardy speaking about himself, and he said, "Before I signed for Leicester, and why I've been at Leicester, and the club have known this the whole time. He has 3 cans of Red Bulls a day, and he smokes. So that tells you the sort of character that Jamie Vardy is. Do you know what I like about? I don't like Jamie Vardy, but do you know what I like about Jamie Vardy is the fact that he's never lost. He's never lost his personality. He's always stayed from where he knew that it began. Do you know, like, and what I mean by that is, do you know when you become a footballer and you start to think, yeah, I'm the high almighty, I'm this, I'm that. It seems like Jamie Vardy's never had that or never done that, and he's just always maintained that normal lifestyle that he had before joining Leicester. And I have to give him props for that.
I also think that's what. I also think that's one of the reasons why he turned Arsenal down when he had the opportunity to go there. I think he realised that to play for Arsenal Football Club, he had to have a bit of a professionalism that he wasn't really part of, like of him.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I think that he's, I think he deserves all the props that he gets. To be fair, and the fact that he's still doing it, I take me out of to him.
I think he got there with the likes of Ormery, and that he definitely will. Doc, it's the last 10 minutes. I like to go down a controversial route of our refereeing system in the Premier League. Let's go to Goodison Park. Dan Burns' tackle on Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Is it a penalty or is it not a penalty?
So there's 2 incidents in the game, yeah? There's the first penalty that's given and there's the one that's not given. So the first penalty that's given, 100% the right choice. No ifs, no buts, no maybe. This concept of he's not getting near the ball. You cannot manhandle a player in the box and get away with it in this day and age. It's not like 20 years ago where you hope the referee hasn't seen it. You're not going to get away with it. But with regards to the one that wasn't given, I actually think that's the right decision. I think if you slow it down and you actually watch it from the right angle, I think the striker kicks the defender. He's not putting in a tackle. He's not trying to put in a tackle. He's making himself known. And for me, the striker kicks the defender. So for me, it's not a penalty.
Wow. I think it is a penalty. And I agreed with Stephen Warnock on Ref Watch this morning. So obviously, when the tackle comes in, Calvert-Lewin is in full motion. So he's just about to tap that ball in the back of the net when Dan Burns' foot touches the back of his leg. So from my perspective, and I will always be biased because I was a striker myself, but from my perspective, I think it's a stonewall penalty, and I think Everton are unlucky not to get that penalty. I really do.
See, that's the thing, though. Yeah, your concept is that the player has lifted his leg back and and the defender has kicked him. If that's your concept, if that's what you believe happened, then if you don't give the penalty, then that's wrong, isn't it? I just don't believe that that's what happened. I believe he pulls his leg back to get his shot, and as he pulls his leg back, he kicks the defender and therefore, how can you blame the defender for being near him? So he hasn't done anything. He hasn't kicked the player. That's not what happened. So that's my versions of events. I don't believe the defender kicks the player. So if he doesn't kick the player, I'm not giving a penalty.
Fair enough. Debate for another day, that one. I want to move on to Stamford Bridge. As I said earlier, I've touched on it. It was a feisty game of football. What do we make of Nicholas Jackson's actions? And I will give you my opinion after if you don't sort of touch on it. Nicholas Jackson caught slapping, punching, whatever you want to say, the Forest player in that melee. What do you make of that, mate?
Slap, a punch, you can dress it up as much as you want. If you strike an opponent, it's a red card. Simple laws of the game. If he's done that, it's a red card. No ifs, no buts, no maybes, no borderline, no justification, no logic. You're not allowed to do it, mate. Rule number 1. You're not allowed to do it. So if he's done it, it's a red card. Simple as.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm exactly the same as you. I think it's a red card. Now, ultimately, the referee hasn't given nothing, which whether he don't see it or whatever, he hasn't give it. Then the VAR don't give it either because they deem it as not violent conduct. And now people are saying the FA are looking at it, this and that. If the FA look at it and deem it as violent conduct and Jackson does ultimately get the ban from what the strike that he imposes on the defender or the in the melee, do you think, Doc, and I want your honest opinion here, mate, do you think it makes a mockery of not only our refereeing system but our VAR system if the FA go back on it now?
I don't think it makes a mockery of it because, again, I think that if he gets retrospective ban, I think that's the right decision. So I don't think it makes a mockery of it. The thing that I don't like about this is VAR isn't doing its job. VAR is letting us down where it's interjecting and it's agreeing with the ref for someone who's not at the game, understanding the rule and then saying, thank you for agreeing with the ref, but the ref was wrong. You're wrong, and here's the right decision. So the whole concept is, why are we getting to this? I don't understand. I don't understand why VAR haven't got the exact same handbook that the other people have got. And all this about, it's not aggressive and where anything else. Slapping an opponent or punching an opponent, there's only one way that you can look at it. There's only one way to see it. And the rules of the games is you're not allowed to do it. So I just don't understand how VAR ain't overturning these myself. I think that VAR is getting them wrong. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I just want to go to the comments. D says, I would agree it's a pen. The defender puts his leg there on purpose. Love it, D. He then goes on to say, it was quick thinking from the defender as he knew that the only way to stop him from scoring. And then
I think that's slightly contradictory. I think there's a bit of a contradiction there.
I love it.
I think to say that it's a foul and it's a penalty to then congratulate the defender for doing it, I think that's a bit hypocritical. Like, you can't have it both ways. If it's a penalty and you believe it's a foul, then it's not good defending, is it? I'm sorry, but
and then he says, did you see the ref at under 21s who sent the keeper off for no reason? I didn't see it, to be honest with you.
No, I don't. No,
so I can't comment. And
I need to explain it better. Yeah, I think you do need to explain it better, mate.
Mr.
I know
Whitehead,
it's hard when you're in the comments.
Mr. Whitehead is in the building and he says Tarkowski's penalty to give away was shocking. One to give away with his experience and credentials. Yeah, I can't agree with you more on that. And D goes on to say the standard of refereeing in this country, it's possible poor. Yeah. Doc, I don't know if you've seen it, but did you see what happened down at Welling United over the weekend?
No.
Where the referee gives a penalty for an handball that's about 10 yards outside the penalty area. I'm going to send you a photo. It's hilarious. Where it says, on red cards, why is there no punishment for the VAR team after the Bruno red was overturned? Good question, Wes. I think it's brilliant, and I'll let Doc elaborate on this a little bit.
The short answer is, when you say, why is there no punishment, I think that is a little bit of a naive answer, because VAR people that make these mistakes are ultimately being removed from their position as punishment. They're not being given the opportunity they got before as punishment. So the concept of there's no punishment, I think that's your lack of understanding on how it works. These people are getting a position based on points that they earn through refereeing and making decisions. They also lose points on a scoring scheme. So at the end of the season, if there's an FA Cup, if there's any other cup, the referees with the most points are the ones that get picked. So to say that there's no punishment isn't entirely true. Every referee will have punishment. You just might not be aware of the punishment. But believe me when I tell you that even in grassroots football, there's still punishment for bad decisions.
So,
Trust me on
Doc,
that one.
let me just because I agree with Wes here, but I want to go from a different perspective. So, if I'm a referee on a Saturday and I make a huge error, it is publicised by the media that I haven't got a game the weekend and I've got to sit a week out because of that error. So why is it not the same for VAR? I know you're saying there's punishment because they won't get FA Cup finals and whatever, or the big games, but why is it not the same for VAR when they make a huge cock up? I'll use Bruno, like a Bruno situation. Why is it not put in the media that Paul Tierney is no longer going to be in the VAR the week after? Do you know what I mean? I'm just
There
using
is.
Paul Tierney as an example.
There is the short answer. If you look for the answer, you will find the answer, and it will be there. Now, they're not going to emphasize and make a big deal of a VAR guy, because they're not going to try and crucify a, a process that they're trying to implement. But believe you me, if VAR make a stinker, the ones that have made the howlers, the ones that disallowed the goal for the Liverpool, they were demoted. They were demoted from their duties. Like, it happens. You know, people have got this concept that these people that are making mistakes just get away with it. And that's a false climate. That's not true. That's not how it works. All these refs, VAR, anyone, if they're making mistakes, it doesn't go unnoticed, especially when it's being overturned. And the minute you overturn it is the minute you've acknowledged that there's been a mistake there. So there will be repercussions for the ref and the VAR for the fact that it's been overturned. There will be.
Yeah. I'm just glad you said VAR ain't working at the minute. I might have to screenshot that and put it somewhere for like in the memory box or something. It's brilliant. I love it.
No, 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 no,
Um,
no, 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 no. I haven't said VAR isn't working. That's not what I said. I said that VAR is still getting mistakes wrong. VAR over the course of the season will still get more right than they get wrong. That is a statistic. That is a fact. So I've never stated VAR is perfect. Not in a long shot. But don't put words into my mouth, because VAR is still getting more decisions right than without VAR.
Punishment is not what is needed. Consistency is what is needed. The apologies are meaningless, says Whitehead. And then D says the refs in the Prem start off under 21 level to see the standard that are coming through is poor. Yeah, again, they're obviously there for a reason. I think Whitehead says, I think punishment is to make them watch a whole 90 minutes of them refereeing for a game. Doc, it's been a pleasure, mate. I just want to do this last one, though. Matty Kerr says, the punishment should be giving them a Palace season ticket.
If you really want to punish the refs, Matty Kerr, mate, I think the best way to punish these refs is to make them watch either Spurs highlights over the last 30 years or a repeat of your second half performance against Brighton, maybe.
And on that note, if you are out walking your dog, just try not to go Spursy. Just try and keep hold of the lead. I know it's not for everyone in North London, but yeah. Doc, do you want to just elaborate on next week's show, mate? Because I understand that we potentially have a special guest coming.
you've put me on the spot here. I don't even know if we're singing from the same hymn sheet here, but yeah, I believe next week we're going to be trying to do a championship podcast. We're going to do something a little bit different, and we're going to try and get some of our fellow championship fans on. And the Prime Premier League podcast for 1 week special will be a Prime Championship podcast, and we will try to look at the teams in the Championship, and we try to give them a little bit of our time. I personally have only got so much I can say on the Championship because I only watch certain games. I don't have the time of day or the energy, and I don't really care for the league that much because it doesn't concern me to watch them on a big scale. But I do keep my eye and my ears to the ground, and it'd be very interesting to hear people that are watching it on a daily basis, living it and breathing it, what's going on in the Championship. So yeah, that's the plan, Stan.
Okay, Doc, we have got one more question, and it is a good question, and I just want to get your opinion on it. Wes says, Doc, do you think there is corruption in the refereeing system? For instance, City paying Oliver to ref in Saudi to get a ref City games.
Really? I want to ask you a question, yeah. I want to ask you all a question. Do you want to live in a world, yeah, where we generally believe we are part of corruption? That's the question you want to ask yourself. So my answer is, I would like to think that we wouldn't scoop that low. So there's my answer. I would like to think that we are better than the rest. We're not the Serie A. We're not La Liga. So I would like to think that that doesn't happen. If it is happening, then it's pretty disgraceful. And we need to accept that we should be ashamed of that corruption. But we'll see, mate. We'll see. The funny thing is when you talk about City, yeah? The funny thing is when you talk about City, all you fans of the big clubs, right? There's something I want you to just digest. The last thing I say on the matter. You fans of the big clubs have benefited from decisions over the small clubs for the last 33 years of Premier League history. For 33 years, if there was a big decision in the game that could potentially sort out a match where the big team was playing in, 9 times out of 10, you would get the benefit of that decision. Where was your energy when you were getting these decisions then that you're now whinging about when you don't get now? And I think that is a perfect mic drop moment to leave the show on.
On that note, guys, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Head over to TikTok and subscribe to the Prime Premier League podcast page where you'll catch Doc live for the majority of the day every day. And there's always a bit of banter in there. As long as you're respectful and polite, Doc will always have the time of day for you. And guys, we look forward to seeing you on Thursday in the London Derby show where we will talk about Spurs, Arsenal, West Ham, Crystal Palace in a lot more depth. And obviously, West Ham head to the Shite Hart Lane Stadium in our next fixture. So I'm sure me and Matty will go head to head for the next couple of weeks. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. I wish you all the best this week. I hope you don't work too hard. And Doc, I'll catch up with you soon, brother.